Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. Last time when I talked about the other orchid of the same variety, I mentioned that I will use another video to talk about the other two, these two. They're smaller ones and I bought them a little later. I got them from my local grocery store, Trader Joe. So when I first purchased them, they came with flowers. And then after those flowers faded, I simply trimmed the flower spike a little bit. And then the other ones, I kept it and it started to put out secondary spike from the nodes. These were still back in their original moss medium in the same setup. I like to keep them that way for over one winter, and then with proper care and the temperature drop, typically they would rebloom in the springtime, which they did, and then after that I would repot them. That's what I always like to do with my store-bought orchids. Unless there is any special sign, very obvious signs of, say, pest infestation, root rot, or if you simply smell something weird coming out of the medium, then it's okay for you to do quote-unquote a emergency repot to just really figure out what's happening. Otherwise, if there's no pest, no smell, the orchid are doing great, I usually really just keep them how they are and wait for another winter to go by for them to bloom and then repot. But when these two orchids were about to finish with their blooms, I knew I had to do some repot because they have grown so many aerial roots since I purchased them, and those aerial roots were becoming a little unruly, and to be honest with you, they were taking up too much horizontal space, even though I put them on the very top of my growing space. But still, every time I need to water them, I need to take them down, add water, etc. And lots of aerial roots really was kind of a burden really, because sometimes I'm just so afraid that I would damage those roots. And plus, if I repot them and get these aerial roots back into the container, the medium, it would have more roots to take up moistures and nutrients. So I knew I had to do it. This pink ceramic pot also came with the orchid. So I simply removed the plastic flimsy film cup and put this back into the ceramic pot after I water them. You see how they were placed in a plastic cup? That's when I was giving it water, and then after it soaks up the, say, 1/8 or quarter cup of water, and then I will put it back into the ceramic pot because it's heavier, so that way I don't have to worry about them being top heavy and fall from the very top of the grow space. Now this is just a video clip to give you a sense of what they look like when they were in bloom. And here again, that transparent plastic cup was what I used to put them in before I give them the water, and then typically I let them sit in that cup for maybe about half an hour, and all the moisture, the water, would then be absorbed into the medium by the sphagnum moss, and then I would take it out and put it back into the pink ceramic pot that came with the orchid. These two orchids receive usually quarter cup of water, and then fertilizer, the same quarter strength. I gave these two orchids fertilizer when I fertilized all my orchids. So they did okay. It wasn't the stellar rebloom, but given how they look, only a few roots were in the sphagnum moss, So I think a repot was definitely the right thing to do. So pretty soon coming up, you're going to see a couple photos. So first of all, because they have so many aerial roots and very long too, so I basically use a pot to soak them, to soak the roots, and then remove the sphagnum moss, trim off the dead tissues, and thankfully there weren't that many to cut off. And all the roots are looking pretty good, so I carefully kind of reorganize the roots and then slowly, put the roots back into a new container. This container is a 12-ounce container. And then from there, I slowly add in the pebbles, the manto clay and hydrocorn mixture. It's roughly 1:1. I just use my hands. I didn't use any cup to measure. It's roughly 1:1 ratio. And I usually put the bigger pebbles toward the middle, the center of the container, right underneath the orchid. And then around the edge, I tend to use a little bit more smaller pebbles. And the same thing, I also use a double cup method. And then the inner cup, by the way, has drainage holes at the bottom. So this is a traditional setup with inorganic media. And the blue cup, in case you're new to my channel, that is really just for aesthetic and also for blocking out unnecessary light exposure, sun exposure, so that we can avoid algae to form. But algae doesn't really impact anything. So if you don't mind it, you don't really have to have that most outer cup, the blue cup. And this is the second one. The other orchid that also has pretty long aerial roots. But this one, instead of soaking, I got lazy. I just took it down under a faucet and just basically let the water go through the roots. And now that the roots were wet, I also did the same thing. Carefully reorganize them and push them into the container clockwise or counterclockwise as you turn and you push more roots in to the container. That's how I did it. It was very easy. And if you did break a couple roots development, don't worry about it, because the orchid already has enough moisture from when I was rinsing it or soaking it. So, after the repot, keep it completely dry for a week. This orchid will be just fine. So don't worry about breaking any roots, because that 1 week dry period will allow the development to scab over. So everything is well. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!